every single household, family, and particularly families with children, who end up homeless, who are evicted into homelessness through no fault of their own, are being let down by the state. Very, very badly let down. They're being traumatised, and in many cases, I know I've heard you say, oh, most people get out of homelessness within a relatively short time. That's not the experience I'm seeing, is of families and kids in homeless situations for years on end, often not even in their own locality, so they're having to travel in from very, very poor quality accommodation in the city centre to bring their kids out to school in Dunleary, in really impossible circumstances, and left there for long, long periods of time. Others traumatised by the possibility of eviction, which, by the way, brings up the issue, and I'd like to hear the government give a commitment on this, that we get a report before the summer recess on what's happening with all the tenants in situ. Because I'm hearing there's great delays, there's problems, and there's excuses being made about why purchases to prevent homelessness aren't happening. So I'd like to hear a detailed report from the Minister before that, but I would also ask the Taoiseach to pay particular attention to families and children who are in long-term homelessness in emergency accommodation, and where they are not even in their own locality near to their school and their family supports.
Just in relation to the issue of long-term family homelessness, which Deputy Boyd Barrett mentioned, and I agree that it is unacceptably high. Family homelessness will happen from time to time, but when it does happen, it should be rare, it should be brief, and it shouldn't be repeated. I'll have to check the numbers, but my understanding is that in most cases we're able to find proper accommodation for families within a year, and about half cases within 6 to 7 months. But I acknowledge that's a long time in the child of a life, or in the life of a child rather. But it can be complex. At the moment, about 40% of people in emergency accommodation are not Irish citizens, and many of those are not entitled to social housing. We're drilling down into more detail in that, so we've better figures in the months ahead. And then also, even from my own experience in helping people with family homelessness, and I am helping a lot of people at the moment through my constituency service, I can think of one family that are 4 years in emergency accommodation. They're 4 years homeless. But what does that mean? It means that they're being accommodated in a 2-bed apartment provided by the council for the best part of those 4 years, and they've turned down 2 offers of accommodation. Now, they may have done so for good reasons, given the space available, given the size of the family, but it's not often as simple as people represent it. People who are in long-term homelessness may often be in an apartment or a house with their own door and their own key, and they may have been offered accommodation which they didn't accept for reasons that may well be good reasons, but it's not often the way people think it is. In relation to the tenant in situ scheme, I just got an update from Minister O'Brien about that the other day. It looks like there's about 2,000 now in train, which is actually really encouraging. 2,000 families that might have faced eviction, faced having to find a new place to live, are now being transitioned into social housing, because we're buying those units from landlords who are selling up. It does take time to do that work. Everyone knows how, anyone who's bought or sold a house knows how long it can take. But looking like about 2,000 this year, which isn't a bad number.
Will we get a report before the summer recess?
Yeah, I can certainly ask for that. We'll be doing the end of Q2 report on Housing for All in about 2 weeks' time, so we can perhaps include it on that. I know in Fingal, in my own county, it's about 200. So there's a good chance we'll exceed the target of 1,500 for this year. Whether all those purchases are signed and sealed by the end of the year, though, is a different question, but may well be over 2,000, so I think it has been a successful policy. Just in relation to wage theft, my understanding is that it is a criminal offence under non-payment of wages, but I will have to check into that again, and perhaps it's a case that we should strengthen the law, because not paying somebody €200 that they're entitled to is the same as taking €200 off somebody, in my view, and the penalty should be similar. Just in relation to trans healthcare, met with Minister Donnelly and Minister Naughton there in Pride Week last week, met with Tenny and all the groups that represent or most of the groups represent the LGBT community, and we did agree that there'd be further engagement on the issue of trans healthcare, which isn't up to scratch in Ireland, doesn't compare favourably with most of the European countries, but there have been real difficulties recruiting staff in those areas, and a lot of the medicine in those areas is still being developed.